Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's time for our Saturday briefing. Hope you've had a good week. It's been a good week here in Bismarck. Sonja and I have been local after Monday. We had a really busy weekend last weekend with the women's conferences. It went really great down in Lemon on Friday, up in Minot on Saturday, and over to Wahpeton on Sunday. Spent the night there, drove back in on Monday, and then had the Roberts off to the airport early Tuesday morning. And after that, things have kind of settled down a little bit. And but it's so it's been a good week. I hope your week's been good. It's kind of interesting. We did have some snow this morning, just when I thought old man winter was just going to kindly say goodbye and slip out the back door and get on with his business somewhere else in the world. Oh no, he comes running back around the house and knocks on the front door and gave us a little snow today. But I see my window there. As you can see, there's no snow now, and not a lot. It was just a little dusting, but that's life in the Dakotas. It keeps it interesting for us. As you can see, I'm dressed up a little bit more than I normally am for my Saturday briefing. Got my tie on and my Sunday shirt on, and a little bit I'll be putting a jacket on as well, because when I get through with this recording, I will make a recording for the MIP graduation that's coming up in May, and got to get those in. They've asked all the administrative bishops that have graduates to give a little short video of congratulations. So hey, why don't I do it for all the people that it really matters the most for, and that's the home team. And I know you'll join with me in giving congratulations to Michaela Grubb. She's done a masterful job. She came, matter of fact, Thursday she came in the office for her session this year, for this month, and did a great job. I want to give kudos to Brother Alan Hathaway, who is our North Dakota coordinator for MIP. He does a great job, Brother Allen. I really salute you and honor you. You give some great material, and he has a little quirky thing that he likes to do, which I think is really good. It's kind of puts the potential, the interns, puts them on in a little bit of pressure situation where they have to be quick with their mind and on their feet. And I won't give away all of his little trade secrets, but anyway, Michaela did a great job, came through in flying colors. So Sister Michaela, I congratulate you and know that you've got a bright future ahead of you, and thank God that you're on the NCR ministerial team, and we love and honor you. Let's see here, just a quick reminder of a couple other things before we jump into the lesson. We will have our prayer call this Sunday, but with next Sunday being Easter, we'll probably not have our, well, we won't. We will not have our We Pray regional prayer call next Sunday. That's Easter, and a lot of times there's family activities involved, and that'll be a busy day. And so we will have our We Pray regional call this week, and the login information will be in the email. And then I'll have a couple other attachments. You'll have a calendar of upcoming events, and then I'll have the lesson notes as an attachment. And then, not that I make any claims to be a great preacher, but I'm going to include an outline for you, a sermon for next Sunday, Easter. You know, how many ways can you talk about Easter? And you really don't have to come up with new ways in a way, but people do need to hear a little different approach sometimes to stay interested. And I do believe that this Sunday or next Sunday could really be a big Easter. There's a lot of people with faith issues on their mind with the last 14 months or so that we have been going through, just a very grueling time in our national history and really around the world. And so, anyway, it's just an idea for you, and use it. And if it works really good for you, of course, as the old saying goes, put it in your sausage maker and grind it up and make your own sausage. So if it goes good and you can use part of it or all of it, you don't have to mention my name. If it goes bad, you also don't mention my name, okay? So it's just an idea. And I used to say, my wife gives me great ideas. She's quite a Bible scholar and very committed to her devotional life. And so she's always giving me good tidbits. And man, I'll steal them in a skinny minute and use them. And I tell people, you give me better material, I'll give you better sermons. And so we're all learners. And so that may help you a little bit. But anyway, enough of that. I've been talking for about 5 minutes. I want to jump into this thing real quick now. I do have a lesson for you that's been on my mind today. And honestly, I guess I'd been thinking about it, and it was kind of confirmed today when I got a text from one of my pastors. It's a text that I want to remember, I want to keep. It's not that we're out trying to get kudos or getting applause. That's not the goal. But you can listen to people. If you listen to them long enough, you'll know what's in their heart. And so I got a very sincere text from one of our pastors, and he told me that I was the best overseer that he'd ever had. And I thought, wow, now this is what I want to bookmark. I want to put this, I want to keep that and hold that close. And it's not that I want to be better than other people, but that really hit home, and that was a very meaningful moment for me, because this brother is not a light, chaffy kind of guy that just throws words around. Well, that kind of really helped me to think of what I wanted to share today. And so I want to share a thought. The one thing that's required to be a gold standard pastor, the one thing, if you get this right, you can be a gold standard. In other words, top of the line, the best pastor ever. So what's that one thing? Well, I can sum it up real quick. Let me give you this background. When I left the pastorate and I went into the state office in South Carolina as a church ministries director, it was entirely different. I learned real quick that it was an entirely different way or mindset that was going to be required. It's one thing to shepherd sheep. It's another thing to shepherd shepherds. It was an entirely different mindset, and it's still kingdom work, but it's like apples and oranges. They're not the same. And so I began to immediately ask everybody I talked to, because we've had some great church ministries directors / evangelism directors back in the day in South Carolina. It was quite an honor to be numbered with what were my heroes in South Carolina. They were the finest and the greatest men of God, none finer in our state. And so I woke up one day and found myself living in the church ministries parsonage in the same home that some of the heroes of our state there and in the Church of God around the world. And so, that was a little intimidating. So I began to immediately ask, what about our church ministries directors, our evangelism directors, who was, in your opinion, the very best? What is the gold standard evangelism / church ministries director? That's how I would word it. And I asked many people this. I got one answer, the thing that made them the gold standard. And then when I came in to this office and became an administrative bishop, again, it's administrative work like church ministries, but it's a little different dynamic. And there's other things that are required of me that were not required and all that, but it's still very much the same lane. And I asked the same question. I've probably asked every one of you. You may not remember this, but I've asked you. I began to ask every administrative bishop that I talked to, pastors and ministers that I talked to, laity that I talked to. I would ask, and I still ask this question when I have a first-time conversation with someone. And that question is, who is the gold standard overseer in your life and why? And again, I've only gotten one answer. And honestly, I know I've asked this question maybe 200 or 300 times. I talk to people every day almost. And so maybe hundreds of times I've asked this question when I was working in South Carolina in the state office, and now working here I'm in my 4th year now, over 3 years being an administrative bishop. I've only gotten one answer. That's amazing to me. Now, there's a lot of other things that are required, but I've only gotten one answer, that this is whoever the gold standard overseer was, and this is why. And do you know what it was? The one answer is that they cared about me. They acted like I mattered. In other words, they had a relationship with them. They were approachable. They acted like they cared for them. That's the only answer I've got. There's a lot of other stuff that I have to do that's on my plate to be a gold standard overseer. There really is, but none of that matters until I've taken care of that issue. As it began to, day after day after day, I kept getting that answer, because the truth is, just like your people, most of you, dear brothers and sisters, you don't know what I have to do. You don't know my job. And your people don't know your job. A lot of people are under the illusion that a pastor just sleeps in and works one day a week kind of thing and throws together something, got offline, go on sermons.com or something and pull together a few remarks. And that's, they're just good at, it's natural for them to talk in front of people. And so it's just so easy. It looks so easy when I see a preacher up there doing his job. And so they don't know what you do. And so we all know there's a lot more to it, but a gold standard pastor has to meet that expectation, has to have a relationship with his people where they think that he really cares about me. She really knows me. I matter to her. That's the one thing that you and I have to do to be gold standard at our job. And honestly, especially in management, or a husband or a wife or a parent or a grandparent, there's a lot of skills. But I suspect that just about in any area of life, that's the one thing that has to be taken care of. And so now let me walk you through it, a couple of things. Now, I want to remind you the motive behind it. We got to keep our hearts pure. So what's the motive behind it? Well, I'll be honest with you. The first thing is, I want to be the best. There's a world of difference between, I hate to lose. I hate to be number two. I know that's terrible. It's probably carnal, but it has motivated me to better myself and to find out what it requires to be gold standard. And you have to purify it. You have to purify your motives. But I've learned something. There's a world of difference between doing my best and being the best. And every church, the gold standard is different. And if you're going to be a hammer and you're helping a carpenter, well then, man, you're that's the perfect relationship. But if you're great at being a hammer and a painter, professional painter, picks you up and thinks they're picking up a brush, they're going to have a tough time painting on a canvas or on a wall with a hammer. And so I remember my dad telling me, son, it's a lot easier for you to change than to expect a whole church to change. And so I want to be the very best that I can be. But I also want to be the best. And so you have to find that out. What is the gold standard where you're at? Do you know every church, really every person, has a gold standard that constitutes a great pastor? Now, you're not going to be able to please everybody. I get that. But when you begin to realize what is the gold standard for this church that I'm serving. Let me give you an example. I remember I was deep into my pastorate at Fort Mill. I'd been there several years. And one day I was walking down the hall, and I know the very spot. I'd been there for several years. And I know the very spot. A little lady there by the name of Margaret Horn. Sister Margaret, if you were watching this, because she's kind of faithful to keep up with a lot of my stuff on my blog and especially on Facebook and stuff. So Sister Margaret, if you're watching this, I love you. I really do. You are a precious saint of God. And Sister Margaret is the daughter of the mother or the woman where the Fort Mill Church of God was started. I mean, so this goes all the way back. She was there when they started the Church of God in Fort Mill in a lady's home. In a prayer, it started with a prayer meeting, and out of that prayer meeting is how the church was organized in birth. So this goes all the way back, first generation, charter member. This was a charter member, and she looked at me one day and she said, Brother Kim, you remind me of C.R. Spain. That's the day I knew I had arrived, because C.R. Spain was the gold standard pastor when I got there. He was the one that every other pastor was measured by. Is he as good as C.R. Spain? And oddly enough, C.R. Spain did what I'm talking about today. What the only thing he was known as a good preacher, but I don't hear him talk about his preaching. I don't hear him talking about his great administrative skills. I don't hear him talking about his looks or, was he good at math? None of that stuff. The only thing I hear him talking about was he would get up on Sunday morning and go from house to house, get up early, get people out of bed, sit there and eat breakfast with them. And I one old brother, he's gone on to be with the Lord there, Elmer Tutherow, Brother Elmer. I remember Elmer talking to me one day, and this is a guy, I don't remember how old he would be, but probably in his 80s. Okay, he's standing there and he's weeping, he's crying as he remembers how Brother Spain would come by every day where he worked. He was self-employed and he would work. He'd come by. He said, "I am saved today because of that man." That relationship, that was the gold standard. Every church has one. If you want to be, not only, it's not enough to give your best, but you need to be the best if you want to influence your people. And right now, there's a gold standard. That's the best. And you find out what that best is. And you start there. Now, there's other things that's got to be done. Most of them your people will never even know. It just kind of magically happens for them. They don't know all the organizational skills and all the stuff that goes into pulling off a great service or pastoring a great church. And they don't need to know. You're the professional. That's why they pay you. But there is that standard. And when you get that right, then it makes such a difference. And so what's the motive behind it? Well, honestly, you want to be the best. If you want to have the best results, then you've got to be the best. But then there's a second, and this is the ultimate motivation behind it. Because the goal is not to manipulate people. The goal is not to do things just to get them to like you, or I'm going to be kind and friendly to them so that I can get what I want. The ultimate goal is that you really and truly love those people and you care for them. It's a long story. It's a lifetime, and I won't bore you with it. I won't put you through it today. But I have distilled my ministry down. In this particular question, I've distilled it down into 6 values. And 3 of them came after pastorate as in administration. But the first 3 is people matter. They matter more than the principle of the thing. They matter more than polity or practice or rules and regulation. I mean, you have to have rules. You have to have polity. It guides you, keeps you out of jail, keeps you off the front page of the paper. But you find a way for grace to win. It's a long story, a lot of painful experiences and I've realized at the end of the day, people matter more than anything. I'm not here to do a good job at balancing the books and keeping the property up and organizing a good service and building great sermons. Those are all required. But I'm here for people. People matter. But I don't want them to leave them the same. And so equipping people for life and eternity. I realized early on that a lot of my ministry was about trying to get people to take care of the church. And one day it dawned on me, I want to equip them for life and eternity. I want to help them. I want the church to help take care of them. And then the church will be okay. And then the third thing is the one thing that we have that the world doesn't have. Zechariah says, not by might or power, but by my spirit. This PEP, P-E-P, people matter, equipping people for life and eternity, and people experiencing the presence and power of God. And there's a journey there, and I won't get into all that, but people experiencing the presence and power of God, that's your secret sauce. And then my other 3, that when I went into administrative work, and how do I shepherd shepherds? I want to vie for you. I vie for you. I want to validate you for who you are and the contribution you're currently making. I don't care if it's one of my prairie pastors that you're in a town with a few hundred, or in some of my city pastors and you got thousands of people. It don't matter. It does matter, but it matters because what you do matters. I want to validate you for who you are and the contribution you're making. You're making a difference. It matters to that one or to that 100 or that 1,000. It matters. But I want to inspire you. When I leave your life, walk out of your life, whatever day, whenever day, however that happens, I want you to be able to say, you know, I'm a better person because David Kemp came into my life. I want to inspire you. What you're doing now matters, but I want to inspire you to be all that you can be. But then I don't want to just be a cheerleader, pep talker. I want to also vie for you, VIE. I want to do my part in equipping you. That's what this Saturday briefing's about. It's just so natural. I'm just playing into my values. But I want to equip you so that you can be all that you can be. But the whole point of what I just shared with you is, what are your values? What are your values? Eventually, we've got to get to the point that we genuinely, we really and truly, genuinely care for the people we serve. Now, you'll see this in the note. There's a progression. We don't wake up one day and be a Mother Teresa. Of course, I don't consider myself a Mother Teresa just yet either. But we don't wake up one day. We start this way. You start out with the goal of you looking good, of you winning. We all do. Young men, they're ambitious. You worry about how did I look? Did my sermon? It's not did my sermon help people? Was my sermon good? That's okay. We start out wanting to win ourselves. It's about us, getting our first church, and on it goes. But eventually the goal is to mature, and you will find yourself starting to look for a win-win. I still want to win. I want to do good in my ministry. I want my sermons to be liked. I want to be liked. I want people to think I'm a great preacher, whatever. But then you begin to realize, but it's not just about me, and you start looking for a win-win, and you're maturing. But brothers and sisters, there must come a day. Jesus teaches us that we pick up our cross and we crucify ourselves daily. There comes a day that you reach the point. It's kind of a foot washing point where you strip off everything but your servant's garments, and you die to self. And all you care about is your people winning, even if you don't win. It stops being about you winning. And that's the progression. You know, sometimes we get stuck in one of those or the other. We've all seen people that kind of get stuck in the first category. It's really, truthfully, at the end of the day, they can be kind, they can be good, and they can be organized, and they can be great, but everybody knows it's really they're in it for themselves. And then there's those that really work hard at win-win. But at the end of the day, when the meeting's over, when the event's over, when the journey's over, they got to get a pay out of it, a payoff. They've got to win as well as the others. But then there's those selfless people, the great ones, the gold standard, that even if I don't win, I want to lay down my life for this church, for this community, for this movement. I believe in it. My brothers and sisters, the sacred graves of others that have gone before me, and I want them to win. So that's the progression. All right, now, what to do? Remember, I want to vie for you, validate you for who you are, inspire you to be more and better and all you can be, but I also want to equip you. And so I've got 3 things that I want to leave with you. First of all, I've gotten into this, but it's something I'm very passionate about. First of all, what do? You have to guard your heart. Guard your heart. I know that's kind of generic. If Tom Gillum, my old friend, great administrative bishop here, definitely practices this, a gold standard bishop. But I've heard him say many times when people, what do? And he'd say, you guard your heart. You can't get bitter. Remember, people don't really know you. They know you as a pastor. They got this image of you as a pastor. They got expectations of you as a pastor. And don't let it ever get personal. Be kindly affectionate to one another, Paul said, in honor, preferring one another. So you have to guard your heart. The second thing is simply do not have enemies. Just refuse to have enemies. Paul also said, bless those that persecute you. Bless and do not curse. And everybody in your church, everybody in your life is not going to like you. Some people, the best you can do is call a truce, and they're going to put up with you. That's about the best you can do. But just refuse to have enemies. Don't fight with people. Love them. Find a way for love, for grace to win. People matter more than being right, but you being right. Of course, you don't want to compromise absolute truth, but find a way for grace to win. And so just refuse to have enemies. I like this scripture, Matthew 11:16. And blessed is he who is not offended because of me. That's Jesus. You're blessed if I don't offend you, Jesus is saying. If Jesus can offend us, brothers, sisters, people will offend you if you allow them. If you're looking for it, you can find a way to be offended. But Jesus said, blessed are those who do not become offended. And so guard your heart. Simply do not have enemies. And then number 3, put everyone that matters on your calendar. Everyone that matters on your calendar. Okay, I mentioned Mother Teresa. She said a lot of people talk about the poor, but very few ever talk to the poor. And there comes a time you have to sit down, and everybody that matters, especially in your congregation, and you're constant. If you want to grow your church, grow your call list, grow your contact list. I try unsolicited. I have people call me every day, and I try to respond back to them. But I try to average, except for Sunday sometime. It's a busy day for us all. But I try to unsolicited, not because I have to, not because I got business to talk about, but just because I care. I try to call 5 people or text 5 people or write a note. But I try to touch 5 people. Because I learned years ago, I can get so busy working for the people that I stop having people in my life. And so you're on my list, pastors. Every minister in this region, I finally worked through, if I've got it right, I know everybody's birthday. I know every day. I know the anniversary of when you were credentialed. I don't call you every time, but if it's a significant one, I try to, 5, 10, 15, 20. And it takes work, but you build a system. I have a little system. They're not hard. I just use a Word document. You can do the same. And there's some that I call different. I've got friends that maybe I only call once a year. I got some acquaintances, maybe I call twice a year. But then I've got some that I call every week, every other week, once a month. And in your local church, it could be a few that you call almost every day, at least during certain seasons of their life. And so people matter. Don't talk about people mattering if they're not on your calendar. If they're not on your calendar and in your pocketbook, in your checkbook, those are the things that matter. Look at a man's calendar, look at a man's checkbook, and you'll see how he spends his time, how he spends his money. That lets you know what really matters. And so how to be a gold standard? Be a gold standard by building relationships with your people and being intentional. I remember, I'll close with this. I remember years ago attending the funeral of George Alford. Some of you may remember Brother Alford. He was a great man. He worked in world missions. Is kind of where he got his notoriety. And he traveled. He might have traveled up here back in the day. And he was a single man. And he always drove a Mercedes, a diesel. This is back when diesels, well, I'm not sure diesels, unless you have a truck out here, you have diesel trucks. But I'm not sure diesel's ever been that popular, but it definitely was unusual back in the day. He would order his Mercedes from Germany. But anyway, let me get off that. But anyway, he had a big impact in our life, and he was church ministries director. He was evangelism director in South Carolina as well. So he came to South Carolina back in the day, and just a great godly man. And I remember Sanjay and I went to his funeral. And back in those days, we had a minister's choir. When one of the ministers died, the ministers would gather in a choir. We had a couple guys that would get there a little early, and they'd brush up on a couple songs, and we'd always sing. So I was up in the choir. And so I was there firsthand, close, and listening to that sermon. It was at Praise Cathedral, one of our largest church. And we were there, the place was packed, and these great keynote speakers, people from Cleveland came in. It was just, like a state funeral kind of thing. And I remember hearing story after story after story after story of this great man. At the end of the funeral, Sanj and I, we got together. I get a little emotional thinking about this. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. But we both got together. And almost the same words come out of our mouth when we kind of got off to ourselves and got in the car. We looked at each other. She looked at me and I looked at her. And we both almost at the same time said, I thought we were special to Brother Alford. Turns out everybody thought they were special to Brother Alford. Turns out we all were. And I remember thinking that day, that's the kind of man I want to be. At my funeral, it'll be the line to go, well, I thought we were special. But everybody was special. And the good news is, brothers and sisters, if you guard your heart, I'm not there yet, trust me, but you keep dying to yourself where it gets to the point that it's not even about you winning anymore. But your people know you don't ever do it all perfect, and you're not on your A game every day. But they know, Pastor's for me. He's for me. He's fighting for me. He's praying for me. He believes in me. He cares about me. It's not about his agenda, his career. It's not about building a big church so that he can get more notoriety. No, he just cares about me. And as you keep plugging away and getting there, you and I can do that. You and I can be a George Alford. That's my goal. And that's my goal for every pastor and every minister in the North Central region. Let's love our people with the love of Christ. And you know what it'll cost you? It'll cost you your life. Well, brothers and sisters, I love you. I honor you, and you're in my prayers every day. And I am for you, and I care for you. I'm still trying to figure it all out, but you matter. And I'm buying for you. Love you, friends. Take care.